Agriculture and land use is an important contributor to global warming. But the interesting thing about agriculture is that it tends not to be carbon dioxide, which is responsible as the main greenhouse gases. And instead it's methane and nitrous oxides. And because those things behave differently in the atmosphere than CO2, it means that with agriculture, we've got to take a slightly different slant than we do with most of the other industrial sectors we're looking at. So this slide is simply a pie chart which shows you where the contribution comes from, in particular the significance of livestock, so ruminants producing methane in particular, but also things like agricultural manures, fertilizers, and so on. And of course, there is all the energy that agriculture uses in ploughing and other agricultural activities. But agriculture also offers unique opportunities, particularly the ability of the soil to capture carbon. And we won't have a zero carbon economy unless we utilize our soil, because we simply cannot go to zero carbon. All industrial sectors are going to produce some amounts of carbon dioxide, but the soil provides us with an opportunity to soak some of that carbon up. So what's of interest in the UK is how we increase this carbon sequestration within the soil, and that's to do with soil management. How we reduce the carbon that we're adding as part of the normal agricultural cycle, so for example the fertilizers and so on. How we reduce the amount of machinery that we're using, because they not only affect the soil through compaction but also they're burning carbon. And generally the message is the least disturbance to the soil, the better. And as I say, it's been estimated that if we could implement low carbon practices in agriculture, we could in fact significantly reduce carbon emissions from the sector itself, but also soak up carbon from other sectors. And we're looking at things like planting trees, like restoring peatlands, converting marginal land, so really non-productive agricultural land, back to native vegetation, keeping permanent pasture, and looking at the stocking densities of the animals that are grazing the land. It's a complicated process, all biological processes are, but basically what we're trying to do is reduce the amount of carbon we're putting into the system and what's coming out of the system, and locking up as much as we can within the soil. But there's no one size fits all, and each agricultural system has got to be evaluated on its own terms, and the weather, the temperature, the type of soil and so on will make significant differences. So beware of people who say there's a blueprint about doing this. What we're interested in is looking at a range of techniques which will take us in the right direction. We traditionally farm by disturbing the soil, by ploughing, and that releases carbon from the soil aggregates. Some of that is necessary because that carbon are the nutrients for the bacteria that create a healthy soil. But a lot of it is actually wasted. So what's of great interest is looking at ways of farming which disturb the soil as little as possible, so that we keep the carbon locked within the soil itself. This is just a posh graph which is trying to show you that in scientific terms. The more you impact the soil, the more you just disturb it, the more carbon, soil organic matter is lost to the atmosphere. So it adds to the greenhouse gases. And what we're looking at then is a range of techniques, from conventional tillage as we know it at the moment, ploughing and so on, to what's called conservation tillage, where you're growing a crop, a viable agricultural crop, but you're doing it in ways that minimize soil disturbance. And that's really where the emphasis is beginning to lie. And so we're looking at management techniques. These are being used within Herefordshire. Essentially, how can we grow crops by disturbing the soil as little as possible? That also has an added advantage that it helps to control soil erosion. That's significant, for example, with phosphates in the Y and the lug. How we can utilize soil water better. So the crops we are trying to grow are growing better than they would otherwise do. And also how we can retain a residue cover on the surface of the soil. One of the worst things really is to have bare land, particularly in the winter months. So we're looking at a range of techniques which involve, for example, cover cropping, keeping the land under some sort of crop to protect the soil itself. And within Herefordshire, then, there's a lot of interest in these regenerative forms of farming, but the four issues that we're really trying to push through the Green Network is to promote debate. It's quite a new thing, regenerative agriculture, but it is about farming in ways that regenerate the soil rather than lead to soil deterioration. There are simple things that you can do, like allowing your hedgerows to grow and so on, and this debate is going on within the county. We're trying to get some of the skills within the farming community locally, so this idea of conservation tillage and of cover cropping, promoting what crop to grow, so you harvest your crop and then you want to put something else on the land as quickly as possible to provide cover. We're looking at the opportunity that post-Brexit policy might hold in terms of designing land management schemes, so ELMS is environmental lands management schemes, government promoted trials, and again, some of those are taking place within the county. And we're looking at the potential for land use change. Can we convert some of our arable land, for example, to permanent pasture or to forestry? Can we utilize native species? And we're trying to do that by showing also that it's economic. It's no good just appealing to the heart, we have also got to appeal to the wallet. So a cost-benefit analysis of all of these things is underway.